John 1:5 is pretty straightforward, although we have an interesting double negative in it. Kai esten haute he angelia hein ake kaamen op altu kai anangelamen humin hati hatheas phos esten kai skatia enalto uk esten udemia. And this is the promise which we have heard from him, and we announce, or we are announcing to you all, that God is light, and darkness in him is not nothing. All right, let's look at this. You'll notice rough breathing, so it's a demonstrative pronoun, feminine, because angelia is feminine. And this is the promise. Then here we have a relative pronoun, so you begin your relative clause, find the end of it, punctuation helps. That's that perfect of akuo we've talked about earlier. So, which we have heard from him, and we are announcing to you all. So you have a present here, and you have to decide whether to make it a simple or a continuous. I kind of like, we have heard it, and so we are announcing it to you. So I would tend to do that. Why is hein in the accusative? Because it's the direct object of the verb inside the relative clause, right? If you're not sure on that, just replace the relative pronoun with its antecedent, which is angelia. And then with hati, you have to decide whether this is intended as direct or indirect speech. If it's direct speech, you'll put quote marks around it. If it's indirect speech, you just say that God light is. So God is light, and darkness in him is not nothing. So what you have here is this double negative, which in Greek, they don't cancel each other out. They strengthen each other. And darkness in him is not nothing. It's interesting to see how the translations are trying to handle the udemia, the double negative. I went with absolutely no darkness. ESV, no darkness at all. Same in the NRSV. Absolutely no darkness, CSB. At all, Net Bible. At all, NLT. Phrasing is pretty straightforward. You break it at a relative clause, at punctuation, and there's going to be parallel between the phos and the skatia. So let's put stuff where it belongs. Always connect your relative clause with its antecedent. I'm going to pull it in just a little, but then connect those. And then we have the actual message. This gets a little interesting. And you may want to indicate somehow that angelia and hati are connected. I like to use arrows, so I could do something like this, visually connect them. And then what you have here, there are two things that we know, that God is light and darkness is absolutely not in him. If it were a bigger screen, I would probably pull the relative clause over something like this. I guess that works too. And then that way they're connected that way. That's visually it's a little bit better. And if you wanted to, you could break the relative clause down where you have ake kaomen parallel with anangelamen. That would work as well. In our current world, there is so much darkness, and it's getting darker and darker, not to be a pessimist. But the light of Christ that also shines in the light of his followers, at least should shine, really can be clearly seen. Much like looking at stars in the desert versus looking at them in the city. The stars are so much brighter in the desert because the darkness is so dark.